Hi, my name is Evan. I'm 28 years old, and I still remember the exact squeak our front door hinge made the night my own mother kicked me out. If you've ever walked into a room and felt a storm brewing before anyone spoke, stick around, this story, for you. And while you're here, tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. It's wild how fast these tailies travel. The whole thing unraveled on one of those swampy South Carolina Sundays when the air feels like a damp towel draped around your neck. I just closed the diner after a 12-hour shift, a double short-staffed by 2 no-shows and 1 fryer that died right after church rush. My feet pulsed inside grease-slick sneakers. My back ached as if someone had twisted the spine knob 2 clicks too tight. But first, I had to hit the grocery store, because if I didn't, the fridge at home would sit there humming its empty complaint, and everyone would pretend food materializes on shelf number 3 by magic. Pushing the cart down fluorescent aisles, I ticked off the usual family requests. Raymond's hazelnut creamer, Mom's lactose-free cheese slices, Miles's only organic granola, plus the general bread milk eggs parade. Swipe, bag, load, done. Outside, cicadas screeched like rusty brakes. The sky glowed the dull orange of street lamps fighting sunset. I cranked my aging Corolla, AC wheezing, and rehearsed the evening in my head. Haul bags inside, shower off onion smell, microwave leftover chili, maybe 5 blessed minutes of silence before my 5 a.m. opening shift. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked ordinary, windows lit, TV flickering blue against curtains. But the moment I stepped onto the porch, something felt wrong. You know how dogs sense earthquakes before the tremor hits? That. The air inside hung thick with burnt toast odor and tension you could slice with the cheap steak knives we never replaced. Miles sprawled across the sectional, phone inches from his nose, thumbs dancing over a battle royale game. The TV blasted an endless trivia show, canned laughter bouncing off the drywall. He didn't glance up, he rarely did. To him, other people were NPCs, non-playable characters, furniture that occasionally stocked the snack drawer. Dad Raymond leaned against the kitchen peninsula, staring into a chipped mug as if the secrets of the cosmos floated in cold coffee grounds. He was a master of vanishing in plain sight. Years of layoffs and half-hearted job hunts had taught him strategic stillness. Stay quiet, stay invisible, and maybe the storm passes. Mom Kendra stood by the stove with arms wrapped so tight across her chest it looked painful. When her eyes snapped to me, they were hard and bright, like marbles pulled from the freezer. I hefted 2 grocery sacks, plastic handles biting crescents into my fingers. "Hey," I managed. "Traffic was brutal." I nudged the door closed with my hip. No reply, only the game show host shrieking about double points for the lightning round. I set the bags on the laminate counter. Milk, eggs, bread, Raymond's creamer, Miles's granola, an unremarkable ritual until Kendra's voice, sharp as shattering glass, slashed through the canned applause. "Is that all you have to say for yourself?" I froze halfway through lifting a carton of orange juice. My brain scrambled for context. Birthday missed, bill unpaid. No, bills were my department. I handled them because no one else would. That was the deal, or so I thought. "Sorry," the word came out thin, baffled. "Don't you dare play dumb, Evan." She stepped forward, finger stabbing the air. "You stroll in here stinking of fryer grease, drop off a few groceries like some charity worker, and you think that fixes your attitude." "My attitude?" I echoed, heat flushing my cheeks. Behind me, Miles smirked, eyes still glued to his screen. Raymond stared harder at his mug. The house felt smaller, walls inching closer. Kendra's voice climbed an octave. "The disrespect, the way you act like you're better than us with your little promotion and your hidden savings." A low hum filled my ears, half rage, half disbelief. I'd spent 10 years handing over paycheck after paycheck so the lights stayed on, so Miles's car insurance got paid, so Dad could gamble on yet another so-called lucky football parlay. If anyone was hiding savings, it wasn't me. Something inside me, stretched thin since high school, finally snapped. Not loud, not explosive, just a quiet shift like ice turning to glass. The exhaustion evaporated, leaving a hollow, icy clarity. "What exactly did I do wrong?" I asked, placing the juice calmly on the counter. "Besides pay for this house." The question landed like a dropped plate. Kendra's face drained from red to pale. Miles's grin faltered. Even Raymond's shoulders twitched, a small defeat. "Get out," she hissed. "You're ungrateful, poison, get out and never come back." I didn't yell, didn't plead. I walked to the key bowl by the door, slid the house key off my ring, and set it on the wood. Next, I opened my wallet, removed the family emergency credit card, code for salon visits and video game releases, and placed it beside the key. 3 breaths. One last look at the family tableau: furious mother, silent father, smirking brother. Then I stepped outside. The door clicked shut. A simple sound, yet it echoed like a starting gun in my chest. Here's the first takeaway I hope someone out there needs to hear. The moment you realize a relationship's terms are non-negotiable, you're already free. Walking away is just paperwork. I drove, nowhere in mind. Asphalt rolled under headlights while the sky bled streaks of violet and tangerine. Hands white-knuckled on the wheel, jaw clenched until my molars ached. 30 minutes? 2 hours? Couldn't tell. Shame and anger churned like storm clouds chasing each other. A flickering neon sign finally yanked me off the highway. Vacancy, Palmetto Pines Motel. Pink letters half burnt out. $29 a night. I handed a bored clerk my debit card and dragged myself into a room that smelled of stale smoke, bleach, and something weary. Popcorn ceiling, threadbare curtains, carpet tattooed with suspicious stains. It was perfect. I collapsed onto a lumpy mattress. The silence roared in my ears, the first real silence I'd heard since adolescence. You'd think I'd feel relief. Instead, an ache bloomed, deep and strange. Not sorrow exactly, more like grieving a version of myself that never got a chance to exist. The kid who saved for an Xbox, the college student who could have studied without hitting the evening shift, the son who was loved for who he was, not what he earned. Lying there under buzzing fluorescent light, I replayed the last decade. Dad's layoff, the first overdue bill, my dishwashing job at 16, every tiny, just this once, that turned into a lifestyle. Funny how years of sacrifice get boiled down to one accusation of attitude. A reflection question for you watching. Have you ever realized you were cast in a role you never auditioned for? Provider, mediator, peacekeeper, and wondered what might happen if you quit mid-scene. Sometime after midnight, thunder cracked outside, or maybe it was a truck downshifting. I startled, then laughed at myself, a short, brittle laugh. No roof to lose now, Evan, you're already out. I stared at the water-stained ceiling until exhaustion finally smothered the adrenaline. Just before sleep pulled me under, one crisp thought crystallized. They didn't evict their son. They smashed their piggy bank because it stopped dispensing cash. Lesson 2 scratched into my heart that night. When people value what you give more than who you are, your absence teaches faster than your presence ever could. Morning seeped through threadbare curtains. My phone alarm chirped, habit from diner life, though for the first time I had nowhere to report. I sat up, joints protesting. Wallet check, $86 left after the motel swipe and groceries that would never be eaten. Not great, but breathing. On the nightstand, a pad of cheap motel stationery begged for ink. I grabbed the complimentary ballpoint and scribbled budget math, pointless doodles, anything to convince myself I had control. But control is a muscle. It strengthens when tested. That thought steadied me. Another question for the comment section. What's the first tiny step you took when life shoved you off a cliff? Sometimes sharing that pebble-sized victory helps someone else climb. I stuffed my few clothes back into the fast food bag they came in, checked out, and pointed the Corolla toward the affordable side of town, eyes scanning for room for rent signs. The future was a blank ledger, terrifying, yes, but also exhilarating. For once, every entry would be mine. As the motel shrank in the rear-view mirror, my phone buzzed with a text. Work short, 3 cooks, can you cover? Frank, the diner owner, must have seen my name on the schedule calendar and gambled. Funny thing, after losing everything, the instinct to say yes flickered. But today, everything meant me. I typed back, sure, see you at 4. Some habits die slow, but tonight the paycheck would land in a bank account finally reserved for one person. I rolled down the window. Humid wind whipped the fryer smell from my hair. Ahead, a green light changed to yellow. I eased through on the caution, not the rush. Plenty of time, I thought. Life's still teaching, and for once I'm the only student on my roster. And that's where the real story begins. The attic room I found 3 days after the motel felt like a treehouse someone forgot to finish. The ceiling sloped so sharply that if I stood exactly in the middle I could straighten my back. One careless sidestep and gypsum greeted my forehead. A single dormer window overlooked a neighbor's jungle of rusted lawn equipment, and the walls smelled faintly of mothballs and loneliness. At $500 a month, utilities folded into the price the same way a magician palms a coin. It was the only place in Greenville my debit card could handle without bursting into flames. I kept my world small. A twin mattress on the floor, two cardboard boxes doubling as nightstands, one lamp rescued from the thrift store's clearance shelf. For dinner, I alternated between peanut butter sandwiches and 25-cent noodle bricks. The irony of managing a diner yet living on dehydrated ramen wasn't lost on me, but the goal was simple: hoard every spare dime like a dragon guarding copper pennies. There were moments that first week when silence felt heavier than the carton of eggs I'd left behind. At home, the television was always shouting, Mom always muttering, Miles barking victory into a headset. Here, when I shut the door, the only sound was the radiator's uncertain clicking. Some nights I welcomed the peace, others I lay awake certain the quiet would crush my chest. Day 9 delivered the gut punch I'd secretly been waiting for, as if the universe couldn't tolerate the idea that I might stabilize too quickly. I'd closed the diner at 1 in the morning. The sky drizzled, street lamps smeared orange halos in the wet. Halfway down Highway 14, the Corolla coughed. Dashboard lights flickered in epileptic unison. The engine sputtered once, twice, and died. Momentum carried me to the shoulder, where the car shuddered to a reluctant stop beneath a billboard promising miracle diets. My first instinct was ridiculous: grab my phone and call home. Years of conditioning don't dissolve overnight. Fingers hovering above Mom's number, I pictured her answering with a put-upon sigh, performing concern, then sliding into a lecture about responsibility before demand not signing my next paycheck. I dropped the phone onto my lap as though it had burned me. Instead, I scrolled to Sophia, my best friend since freshman year, still saved under Sophie, study buddy voice of reason. She answered on the second ring, groggy but present. "Evan, you good?" "I'm on the side of the road," I said, rain thudding on the roof like frantic knuckles. "Car's dead, wallet's anemic. I feel like I'm starring in a low-budget coming-of-age movie." Sophia's laugh was soft, but it held steel. "Okay, first, you've already come of age. Second, call a tow truck, put it on credit, and breathe. You solve problems for a living, solve this one for yourself." I stared through the windshield, rainwater distorting the glowing bill not signed board until the model's abs became a watercolor smear. Could I really swipe plastic for me instead of them? The decision tasted equal parts fear and freedom. The tow arrived 40 minutes later. The driver, a kind-eyed woman named Carol, eyed my uniform and asked which restaurant I worked for. "Floyd's Place," I said, correcting myself when I nearly used its old nickname, Frank's. It felt strange how even inside my own head I was rewriting vocabulary to mark this new era. "Good omelets," she offered, then quoted $400 for the alternator job a local shop could handle by noon. My stomach clenched, but I nodded. She arched a brow. "You sure that's a lot?" "I'm sure," I lied, handing over the credit card that had never once purchased anything except insurance premiums and Miles's textbooks. Watching Carol drive away with my car strapped to the flatbed, I realized the plastic rectangle finally belonged to me. By the time I crawled into the attic bed, sunrise was paling the horizon. I slept 3 hours, reported to Floyd's for an afternoon prep shift, and survived on caffeine and spite. At lunch break, I called the garage. The bill was $452.17. I authorized the charge, thanked them, and walked to the din not sign nur rush feeling oddly powerful, as if adult not sign hood had finally sent the welcome packet. That night, heart still hammering from the expense, I opened my dusty laptop. A basic spreadsheet bloomed across the screen, rows blinking accusatory emptiness. I input my hourly wage, average tips, estimated taxes. Next column, rent, phone, gas, peanut butter tubs, ramen bricks, debits versus credits. The numbers weren't pretty, but they were honest, something my life had lacked for a decade. Sophia FaceTimed me while I adjusted cells. "Budget therapy?" she asked, seeing the glow reflected in my glasses. "Self-prescribed," I said. "I feel like I'm dissecting my financial body, finding tumors nobody told me about." "Keep cutting," she encouraged. "But remember to add a line for fun money, even if it's $5. Survival without joy just sets the stage for another collapse." She was right, though joy that week cost 99 cents in the vending machine downstairs. A packet of peanut M&Ms I ate like communion. On impulse, I logged into the old family checking account, access I'd kept as a safety valve back when I imagined they might lose track of due dates. To my surprise, the username still worked. A cold pulse skittered along my spine. Curiosity shoved aside dread. I queried the last 6 months of transactions. The page rendered like a crime scene photo. My transfers of $1,800 neatly landing on the first of every month, their comforting green smudges in the ledger, then nothing leaving for the mortgage after April. May, June, July all showed zeros where the bank drafts should have been. Instead, red entries bloomed: $1,200 to Suncoast Vacations, $580 to High Voltage Electronics, 3 consecutive $400 cash withdrawals at Lucky Palm Casino. My jaw tightened so hard it creaked. 4 months. They'd stopped paying before the day Kendra branded me ungrateful. The fight wasn't a spontaneous thunderstorm. It was a preemptive strike to eject the witness before he noticed the rain coming through the roof. I scrolled further. Earlier charges blurred into one nauseating pattern: want, spend, ignore, repeat. That money I'd earned plating burgers until midnight, vaporized into slot machines and resort cocktails. I closed the laptop. The radiator ticked its uneven rhythm as if applauding the revelation. My breath felt sharp, jagged. It wasn't only betrayal. It was an awakening to just how skillfully love had been braided with dependency. Reflection moment for anyone watching who's wrestled with family finances. When did you first realize help had morphed into a silent contract you never signed? Drop your turning point below. Someone scrolling through at 3 a.m. might need that roadmap. I tried to sleep, but figures pulsed behind my eyelids like spreadsheets set to strobe. At 2 a.m., I rose, stepped carefully to avoid the low ceiling, and retrieved the notebook left by the previous tenant in the closet. On the first blank page, I wrote 3 sentences. 1. I am not their bank. 2. I am not their excuse. 3. I am the sole custodian of my future. Underneath, I penciled a goal: emergency fund, $5,000. It looked absurd. Then again, so had $400 for an alternator before I swiped the card. The impossible shrinks when faced. The next weeks became a montage of grind and incremental triumph. I volunteered for every extra shift Floyd offered, flipping pancakes at dawn, tallying receipts past midnight. My diet was a punchline, but my balance crept upward: $700, $1,050, $1,600. I watched numbers climb the way some people binge prestige dramas, hungry for the next episode. Opal, the barista at Grounds and Grit, where I refueled between split shifts, started recognizing my order. "Dark roast, splash of oat, no room," she'd confirm, sliding the cup across with a smile warm enough to warrant its own calorie label. One morning, she added a lid stamped with a winky face. That tiny gesture outshone the fluorescent lights of the attic when I opened the cup later. Late one Thursday, Felix, my mentor in an apron stained with marinara, cornered me by the walk-in. "You're logging brutal hours," he said. "You saving for something specific or just afraid to sit still?" I hesitated, then shrugged. Bit of both, trying to build an escape pod. Felix's gaze softened. He was 50, tough, and impossible to fool. "Good, but remember, escape pods are no use if you never climb inside. Don't lose your life to funding it." Lesson logged: money is a tool, not a habitat. On a drizzly Saturday afternoon, the alternator debt cleared off my statement. I celebrated by upgrading dinner from noodles to a $5 rotisserie chicken. Progress tasted like paprika and victory. That night, curiosity morphed into mission. I reopened the family account, but this time downloaded every statement for the last year. The pattern was unmistakable. They'd stopped prioritizing the roof over their heads months before the blow-up, but they never paused a single emergency, hair salon swipe, or Miles's game store spree. It wasn't misfortune. It was math flavored with denial. Anger flared, cooled, crystallized into strategy. I needed the full picture. Credit cards, savings, any hidden lines of credit. The truth had become my currency, and I intended to amass it. A final reflection question for anyone still glued to the screen. When anger shows up, do you let it burn bridges randomly, or do you channel it into building a road out? Tell me what that looked like for you. Your blueprint might help a stranger. I powered down the laptop, stood beneath the slanted roof, and pressed my palm to the wood. The room felt less like a cage, more like a cocoon. Outside, wind rattled loose shingles. Inside, resolve thickened like cooling caramel. The furnace of obligation had melted me thin. Now solitude was forging me solid. Tomorrow, I'd start tracing every thread of debt to its source, no matter how deep it disappeared into casino cashiers or all-inclusive resorts. And when the map was complete, I'd hold it up to the light so the people who drew it couldn't pretend it was art. Some fires, I realized, are meant for illumination, not warmth. I woke before dawn, heart already sprinting, the way it did when the kitchen ticket printer jammed during brunch rush. Numbers swirled behind my eyes, 4 months of phantom mortgage payments, thousands in casino cash withdrawals, each one proof that my parents hadn't merely slipped. They'd swan-dived into denial and dragged my paychecks with them. But the pile of statements still felt like circumstantial evidence. I needed the smoking gun. The idea that there could be more, another account, a secret loan, buzzed in my skull all morning. Between flipping pancakes and calling out short stack for table 9, I remembered a phrase Miles once bragged about when he was trying to sound like a startup bro, unlocking equity. At the time, I'd laughed, picturing him jiggling a giant cartoon key. Now the words tasted poisonous. During break, I slipped into the manager's office, shut the door, and started cold calling the smaller credit unions around Greenville. I used the same polite lie with each rep, following up on paperwork for my father, Raymond Hale. The first 2 banks drew blanks, but the third put me on hold for 30 breathless seconds before a woman returned with sunshine in her voice. Found him. Is this about Mr. Hale's home equity line of credit? Jackpot, and my stomach dropped like I'd stepped off a cliff. I kept my voice steady. Yes, that's it. He misplaced his last statement. Could you remind me of the current balance? One moment, all right, it shows 100,000 even outstanding. Looks like the full limit was drawn. My pen froze above the notepad, and the rate. The introductory rate of 2.9 runs out this month. After that, it floats with prime. Today, that'd be 9.5. 9.5. Interest alone would eat more than their original mortgage. I thanked her, hung up, and stared at my reflection in the dark computer screen. Dad had cooked our family home like a frog in slow-boiled debt, and the water was about to bubble. The restaurant bustle sounded muffled when Ray entered the dining room, as if the tile floor were deep water. I went through the motions until the shift ended, thoughts ricocheting, foreclosure, bankruptcy, homelessness. None of them mine anymore, but still tied to my name by blood and stale expectation. Back in the attic, I gathered every piece of evidence into a manila folder. The documents felt heavier than paper, like slabs of truth. I could have mailed copies, texted screenshots, but those could be ignored or spun. They deserved an audience, one they couldn't mute. I sent a single group text to Mom, Dad, and Miles. We meet tomorrow 10 a.m. at Dawn Grounds, non-negotiable. No one replied, which told me they were calculating. Sleep was a joke. Around 3, I called Uncle Daniel, Dad's kid brother, the practical contractor who'd never bought into Raymond. Next big thing, sermons. Sorry it's late, I murmured after he answered with a gravelly hello. This is about the house and about Dad. I need you at a meeting tomorrow. Daniel exhaled, long and slow. Been waiting for this shoe to drop since he started bragging about Miles's tech empire. Tell me where to be. Sunrise painted the sky coral when I walked into Dawn Grounds, folder under my arm. Opal was behind the counter and raised an eyebrow at the stack of papers. Serious coffee date. Family intervention, I said. She slid a large dark roast my way and squeezed my fingers, a silent good luck. I picked the corner table back to the wall like a gambler who knows the house cheats. 10 o'clock sharp they arrived. Kendra first, lips pursed, purse clenched under her arm like a life preserver. Raymond shuffled behind her, shoulders caved inward. Miles trailed in last, hoodie up, eyes darting. Uncle Daniel slipped in unnoticed and took a chair beside me. Make this quick, Mom snapped as she sat. Your father's not well. I opened the folder and placed the bank statement on the table. Then let's not waste time. This shows the mortgage hasn't been paid since April, despite the money I sent each month. Dad's face blanched. Miles frowned at the page as though the numbers were in code. Banks make mistakes, Kendra said, chin lifted. Sure, I slid the credit card summaries across, casino cash advances, resort packages. But these aren't bank errors, they're choices. Her cheeks colored, but she said nothing. I noticed Miles reading faster now, lips moving with each line item. And this, I added, laying down the coup de grace, the HELOC agreement. Raymond's signature stared back at him in blue ink. Dad's hand fluttered to the paper as if to hide it. That was just temporary, an investment. At 9.5%, Daniel barked a harsh laugh. Ray, that's not an investment, that's a bullet with a delayed fuse. Miles looked up, panic surfacing. Is that why you needed my signature last spring? He hissed at Dad. You said it was for a college savings account. Dad's shoulders quivered. I didn't want to worry you. Kendra rounded on him, voice low and deadly. You forged our son's name on a loan application. The coffee shop hushed. Even the espresso machine paused. I waited, pulse hammering, for Dad's rebuttal, an apology, any acknowledgement. He wilted instead, tears sliding down cheeks unshaven for days. The sight carved something out of me, grief or pity, I wasn't sure, but I didn't let it derail the mission. I cleared my throat. The introductory rate ends in 2 weeks. When it resets, you'll owe more monthly than the original mortgage. Combined with 4 missed payments, the bank will fast-track foreclosure. Miles sank back, hoodie falling off his head. So we're losing the house. Yes, Daniel said quietly, unless a miracle flutters down with a sack of cash. Mom gripped the table edge. Evan, you can stop this. You could pay just until things stabilize. I leaned forward, voice steady. Stabilize? This isn't a stumble, it's a sinkhole. I won't shovel money into it. Her eyes flashed wet fury. How can you do this to your family? I'm not doing anything, I said, palms flat on the papers. I just turned on the lights. Dad's sob turned into a cough. He wiped his face with shaking hands. I thought the market Miles's startup. There is no startup, Miles whispered, shame twisting his features. It was an idea on a napkin, not a business plan. Daniel inhaled sharply. Ray, I can help you find a bankruptcy attorney. That's the only path left. Kendra stared at her coffee, silent tears dropping into the cup. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded rusted. What happens now? I suggest you list the house before the bank does, I said. Sell whatever covers the debts, downsize, start over. The words tasted metallic, but mercy without truth would be poison. Nobody spoke. Outside, cars rolled past in Saturday sunshine as if nothing monumental was collapsing inside the cafe. Opal appeared with a tray of water glasses, unasked for but needed. She placed them gently, gave me a nod, left. Mom pressed palms to her eyes. Where will we go? The same world I landed in, I replied softly. The one where rent is due and actions have price tags. Miles's stare met mine, and for the first time since childhood I saw understanding instead of contempt. I'm sorry, he mouthed. It wasn't loud enough for his parents to hear, but it hit me like a bell. Daniel stood, chair scraping. I'll drive you home. We'll start making calls. He collected the documents as evidence, leaving the HELOC agreement on top like a scarlet letter. Kendra rose unsteadily. At the door she paused, turned back. Her expression wavered between resentment and something gentler. Do you really hate us? The question sliced deeper than any accusation. I shook my head. I don't, but I love myself too, and for once that love gets equal billing. She swallowed, eyes darting to the floor, and followed Daniel out. Dad lingered, fingertips brushing the table. Evan, his voice cracked. Whatever apology he searched for got lost. He left. Miles hung back an extra heartbeat. You were right, he muttered, about all of it. Then he slipped away. I exhaled, muscles sagging as though gravity had increased. Opal settled into the chair opposite me. Need a refill. I glanced at the half-empty cup. Stronger stuff, maybe. She smiled, then asked, How do you feel? Tired, I admitted. Relieved, awful free. The words jumbled, none quite adequate. She folded my hand in both of hers. Freedom's messy. Across the room, sunlight dappled the manila folder left behind. I slid it into my backpack, proof, if doubt ever returned, that I'd done what was necessary. Lesson time for anyone listening who's ever been cast as rescuer. When someone else's crisis starts drowning you, the bravest move is swimming for shore. Not because you hope they drown, but because you finally understand they've been clinging to your shoulders, pushing you under. On land, you can throw a rope. You just can't trade your lungs for theirs. Outside, cicadas buzzed in the warm air. My phone vibrated, a notification from the budgeting app, paycheck deposited. For the first time, it felt like more than money. It was oxygen filling healthy lungs. I tossed my paper cup, walked toward the dinged-up Corolla, and noticed something peculiar. The car looked the same scuffed gray as always, but I no longer saw it as a symbol of barely getting by. It was the vehicle that had carried me away from a burning house, and that made it beautiful. Ignition turned, engine settled into its comforting purr. That new alternator worth every penny, and I pulled into traffic, heading nowhere in particular, just forward. And that was enough. The house on Laurel Crest went to auction in mid-November, a drizzly Thursday when the sweet gum leaves looked like soggy confetti strewn for a party no one attended. I didn't drive by. Uncle Daniel texted a photo of the foreclosure sale sign staked in the lawn, the once proud hydrangeas drooping behind it. I studied the image for a long time, waiting for a rush of vindication that never came. Only a quiet ache, like pressing a bruise I'd finally accepted would always be tender. By then I'd been in my new studio for almost 2 months. Ground floor walk-up, scuffed hardwood, a kitchenette barely wider than my wingspan. Compared to that crooked attic, it felt like owning a slice of skyline. Opal helped me haul in the hand-me-down sofa Uncle Daniel scored off a job site, her laugh echoing as we wrestled it through the doorway. She brought a spider plant in a bright yellow pot and insisted we name it Sunbeam. Frank's sorry old habits, Floyd came by on moving day with a wok and a bottle of bargain Cabernet. "Upgrade from ramen," he declared, and taught me how to flash fry vegetables between delivery runs. The apartment smelled like garlic and fresh paint for a week. Each payday I split my direct deposit, half into a high-yield savings account labeled Freedom Fund, half to living expenses. Watching that balance tick upward felt better than any birthday I could remember. When it hit $5,000, the number I'd scrawled in insomnia ink on attic stationery, I walked to the riverfront with Sophia and celebrated with ice cream cones, winter chill be damned. Miles found me first. I had just finished closing reports at Floyd's, Felix whistling off key beside me, when the dishwasher door swung open and my brother shuffled in, hair plastered to his forehead. "Hey," he muttered, eyes on the tile. "Hey," I returned, steady but cautious. "Got a job washing plates at the Harbor Grill, 3rd shift. They, didn't ask about experience." He scratched his neck. "Just wanted you to know I'm trying." I thought of the kid who once texted me from Cancun asking for another emergency top-up. That version looked distant, like a stranger I'd read about. "Good," I said, meaning it. "It's honest work." Miles nodded, relief loosening his shoulders. Before he left, he slid a folded receipt my way, first paycheck deposit, $89 and change. "Proof," he whispered. I tucked it into my pocket, a brittle bookmark of the chapter he was beginning. Kendra reached out next. A plain envelope appeared in my mailbox, return address a no-frills apartment complex near the bus station. Inside, a single photo of me at age 12, hair matted with pool water, grinning at a homemade birthday cake. On the back she'd written, "I let a lot of things burn. This memory shouldn't be one of them. Thank you for saving yourself." No apology, no request, just a glimpse of the mother she might still become if she kept sifting through her ashes. I placed the photo on the fridge with a magnet Opal had designed, a tiny espresso cup with cartoon steam. Raymond stayed silent until Christmas Eve. The restaurant was calm, all the frantic holiday diners tucked home with leftovers. Snow threatened in the air, rare for South Carolina. Felix and I were balancing inventory when the host announced older gentleman asking for Evan. Dad stood in the foyer, cap in hand, cheeks dotted with cold. He looked smaller, as if someone had turned down the opacity on the man I remembered. "Can we step outside?" he asked. We stood under the overhang, breath fogging. He handed me a battered envelope. "It's the first of many," he said. "Part-time maintenance gig pays dirt, but $20 goes in here every week. I figure I owe you well more than money, but this is what I can measure." I opened the flap, 4 crumpled $20 bills. My reflex was to refuse to play the strong one. But I realized acceptance might be the harder kindness, letting him shoulder even a pebble of the weight he'd dumped on me. I nodded, tucked the envelope into my coat. We exchanged awkward holiday wishes, and he walked off into the swirl of night, shoulders squared despite the wind. January brought a different milestone. Floyd called me into the office, eyes twinkling behind silver-rimmed glasses. "Remember that upscale spot we sketched on napkins?" He slid over a folder stamped with a realtor's logo. "Lease the storefront on River Market. I want you as operating partner, sweat equity plus 5% stake to start." My throat tightened. The kid who once budgeted toilet paper by the square was about to hang his own shingle. Opal squealed when I told her, then surprised me with a binder labeled, mock-up of the logo we'd brainstormed. Stylized flame shaped like a rising phoenix. She'd sprinkled design notes between menu drafts, my handwriting scrawled with dish ideas Felix and I refined after hours. In late February, we signed with a contractor, not Uncle Daniel, conflict of interest. He insisted with a wink, and swing music echoed through gutted walls as demo began. Construction days blurred, tasting sessions, health code checklists, lighting choices. I learned the language of exhaust hoods and POS integrations, the thrill of ordering chairs that would cradle strangers making memories. Meanwhile, the Freedom Fund morphed into the Founders Fund, each automatic transfer proof that I could invest in a future rather than patch a sinking past. One rainy Wednesday, I swung by the Harbor Grill to pinch hit during their flu outbreak staff shortage. Miles was on dishpit duty, steam clouding his glasses. Between rushes, I found him folding side towels with near-military precision. "Know what the sauté guy said about you?" I asked. He braced wary. "Says you hustle, says the line feels lighter when you're here." A shy smile jumped to his lips. "Feels good earning." He rinsed a tray, voice softer. "Mom told me you didn't cash Dad's payments. She's keeping them in a jar until they matter." I shrugged. "Maybe when they're enough for him to mail without flinching, I'll accept. The lesson isn't in the dollars, you know." Miles nodded, eyes shining behind steam. "Lessons doing the work." Here's something life hammered into me right there among the clatter of plates. Forgiveness isn't a single event. It's a subscription service. You decide to renew every day, and some days you click, "Remind me later," and that's okay. April arrived bright and breezy, sawdust still swirling inside embers. On opening night rehearsal, Floyd stood at the pass, white hair netted, calling orders while I plated. Felix inspected herbs like a jeweler appraising diamonds. Opal weaved through tables in a server's apron, testing clearance. The room smelled of cedar, garlic butter, and possibilities. Near midnight, we killed the lights except amber sconces over the bar. I perched on a stool, sipping ginger ale from a rocks glass, pretending it was champagne. Floyd tapped the glass with a spoon. "To Evan," he intoned, "who proved the smartest way to douse a dumpster fire is to build something brighter nearby." Laughter and applause filled the empty dining room. After cleanup, Opal and I walked along the riverfront, moon rippling silver on the water. She slipped her mittened hand into mine. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked softly. "The old life before everything cracked." I considered that crooked attic, the motel neon, the silence after Mom's scream, and weighed them against this cool spring night. "I miss the kid who thought love required overdraft fees," I said. "He tried hard, but I like the man who pays himself first." Opal bumped my shoulder, approving. "Tomorrow the door's open. People will taste your story in every dish." I laughed. Let's hope they taste rosemary and butter instead. Back at the apartment, sunbeams leaves fan toward the window, hungry for dawn. I thumbed through the notebook from the attic, now half filled with financial milestones and menu sketches. Under the original 3 sentences, I added a 4th. 4. We rise higher when we burn what weighs us down. I closed the cover, not with finality but continuation. Life, like a restaurant, always keeps a prep list for tomorrow. A last thought for anyone still listening after this winding ride. Boundaries aren't brick walls, they're garden fences. They keep weeds from choking what you're trying to grow, yet you can still pass a bouquet over the top when both sides are ready. So plant something worth protecting, then invite others in only if they promise not to trample. Sunrise flirted with the horizon. In a few hours, embers would flicker alive, plates clacking, guests laughing, the smell of seared scallops dancing with fresh basil. Somewhere across town, Dad would tighten a leaky faucet, Mom would scan barcodes, and Miles would clock in for another shift, steam fogging his glasses. Separate journeys on the same sprawling map. And me, I'd meet each table with the calm of someone who'd survived his own kitchen fire. Because once you've learned to breathe through smoke, ordinary air feels like a feast all its own.